One, two. Welcome everybody to the show. One-stop shop for your pipe band drummery. How you doing tonight, Andy?
Well, it's obviously this morning, Sunday morning, in downtown Lanarkshire. So,
Lovely. I'm just
I
back
so
straight off the golf course, by the way, and into the podcast. How's that?
oh, that's nice. How did you get round? Did you?
Look, we don't have to talk about that, but
Uh,
but
well,
it's still good. It's winter here, it's nice.
well, that's good that you're not a fair weather golfer.
Yeah, yeah,
Certainly
no,
not.
no. All the year, mate. Sticking into it. Hey,
Wait,
and by the
wait,
way,
hold on. All year, right? That sounds really kind of dramatic, right? But it is Australia versus all year Scotland, where you would
yeah.
obviously have like kind of ice, hail, washing machine, Zanussi, spin
No
load.
excuses. There's no excuses, guys. If I can do it here, you can do it
Uh,
over there.
uh, uh. I, I'm not a fair weather golfer, but I will look out the window and go, not today, not today. Anyway, moving on.
Hey.
So this morning we've got a guest
Yes.
that we found quite interesting, and especially him there because you know that we've obviously been talking about writing music and
Mm-hmm.
how to best do that.
We're pen and paper guys.
I'm
This is
definitely a pen. I'm definitely a pen and paper guy. I am a pen and paper guy out my nut because you know what? The paper doesn't complain at me. The paper doesn't go like, "Nah, that's not quite right, Lady."
Flip out.
How can that fit in a 2-4? What are you thinking about? I'm like, so the
Yeah.
paper doesn't do that, right? But then when you get into technology, it starts to go like, nah, that's wrong, mate. What? That's wrong. It's a bit like one of your pals, right?
Yeah.
That's a drummer, right? And although he's trying to help you out, right? I've had this experience not too long ago, right? Although he's trying to help you out, right? He's actually giving you the rage, right? So
Yeah.
he's trying to kind of be subtle and go like, I mean, can you really do that? And you feel it,
Would you really do that?
and what you feel it doing is just grabbing him by the throat, right, and shaking him like a rag doll until his eyes pop out his head, right? That's what you feel like, and then you go, I maybe no, mate. It might no fit, or it might no work.
But this is why these sort of people like our guest are here, they're around because they fix things like that for us. We'll give a
And
score
well,
to
wait a
someone.
minute, do
We'll
they
give a
really?
score to someone. They save us from the we'll
Do
give a score to someone, and instead of them going, Andy, that none of this doesn't make sense.
Listen, I had that on the reel on the set.
Yeah.
I've two people. I had to
Oh.
I had to swallow my pride. I
Oh.
was like, and I was just like, right, fine, it doesn't work. So that was a toughie for my ego. I
It's
don't think I've
it's
got that big
learned.
an ego, by the way. I genuinely don't think I've got that big an ego, but
Yeah, but
on
that
the real,
hurts. That hurts.
well, of course it is. I need to describe how Cheeseburger looked at it, right? He looked like an old professor, right? An old German grammar professor, right? Looking at it, and he looked at the document with disdain, as if it was like he looked at it and just went like, no, 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 I don't know what you, I don't know if that would, I don't think that would work.
I don't know what you're
Like
trying to
that,
say here.
yeah, but just as he was looking at it, no looking at me, looking at it as if it was offending him. Does that make
Oh,
sense? So he's like,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
oh, no, what are you thinking? And I had to sit there and take this. I'm like, aye, all right, yeah, fine, fine, well.
Well, you just do it then.
So that's exactly what we said. We'll just do. I was like, well, we'll just do yours. City. Go, you happy with that? That made you happy now? So that was the end state of that conversation.
So this is why exactly we've got someone like this on the show here today. So let's put it together. Welcome on Mr. Alan White. One, two. Welcome to the show, Alan White, the big man. The name behind the
Hey,
drum score editor himself, our namesake, would you say? No.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
don't
pretty
sue
much
us.
a coincidence. Yeah, it's
It's a great name.
seriously, I've been doing drum score editor for about 15 years now.
Yeah.
And hang on a minute, the technology here is asking me questions. It's never right, is it? I'm the techie guy, right?
But
But
you are
it's
the
like,
guy who can deal with it, and that's all we know. We
What was
know so
that?
far about you.
hopefully that's it dealt with. Yeah, drum score editor. It's been going about 15 years actually now. And it's called drum score editor because I'm absolutely useless at naming things. So I thought, what does it do? It's an editor for drum scores. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and here we are, coincidence, 15 years later, sitting on your show called Drum Score, but just without the editor. And for the sake of clarity, there's absolutely no, it's pure coincidence. There's no planning in this whatsoever, which is a
It would be
thing.
the laziest sponsorship deal in the world ever. When it'd be like, I'm looking for a sponsor. Who can we get? Oh, do you know what they've got this?
Look at the
Right,
sick
anyway,
name.
moving
Is
on.
it? Gonna
Alan,
steal your logo. I quite like that. Yeah,
Yeah,
we've
that
actually,
that's a
we've
pretty
actually
lazy
moved.
logo as well, actually, isn't it?
We've moved logos. We're in the process of kind of transitioning logo. We've kind of got
Yeah.
a slightly different one, but we've not done it yet. If you know what I mean.
Um,
But,
speaking
yeah.
of drum score editor, it's on Drumming on Demand. That's where you find it, right? That is the drum score editor there.
Yeah, sure. So Gus Seacard, who runs Drumming on Demand, good friend, he's taking care of all the hosting and downloads and the sort of commercial aspect of it for there
Yeah, yeah,
for me,
yeah.
so I can focus on the good bits, the music and the representation, all that kind of good
yeah.
stuff.
So, are you
There,
responsible for the repository of music there? The sheets is.
no.
Oh yeah, yeah,
So I think so. So Gus has got music there from Stephen McWhirter and Gordon Brown, I think, and
yeah,
there may be other contributors as well.
yeah.
I'm not sure what the latest is there, but yeah. So Drumming on Demand is he's kind of hosting a lot of content there that a lot of folks like.
Hmm.
And I used to like there is a web address drumscore.scot which will take you straight to my piece if you like on Drumming on Demand. I used to host it all myself, but I found that it was taking a lot of time dealing with that side of things, and it was taken away from the time to be able to focus on helping people make beautiful drum scores, right?
Yeah, yeah.
so, so that's the stuff Gus is good at, all that hosting and PayPal and all that kind of good stuff. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so I just concentrate on the music,
So
which
that's the
is the
MO
bit I
of the
love.
product, right? That is it's to help people make music.
Well, it's a communications tool when it comes down to it. When you think about written drum scores, they're there to allow, people to read them and you're
Yeah,
communicating your music to them, right?
yeah.
And so for me, I felt that, there's lots of tools out there that you can write music with, right? And but for me, it's kind of like there's the granddaddy out there, Drumscreef, that's been there forever that a lot of people
That's right.
know
Aye.
and forever,
Aye.
right? And I well, we'll start at the beginning. I was 10 years old when I was first, being taught how to play snare drum, right? And I'm now 61 and still being taught how to play snare drum. It's kind of like
You
a
don't look a
lifelong
day
learning.
over 70, Alan. You don't look a day over
Thank you
70.
very much indeed. It's been an easy paper round, right? The uh, and then at the age of 20, I learned how to code. So
Huge.
and so naturally, I kind of like at one point I stumbled across Drumscreef and thought, oh, this is a really good idea. Um, and um, and it kind of and there was a Drumscreef too, but I kind of kept thinking we could do something that's a bit easier for folks, right? That's a bit more sort of natural to use and what have you. Not knocking Drumscreef, it's great. Somebody had the idea to bring drumming and technology together and did that, and it was fantastic, right? I felt well, there's lots of stuff out there you can write drum scores with. There's all the big sort of music notation programs, the ones that are costing you $500 or $600 a pop,
Right,
those sorts
right,
of
right.
Yeah,
things, right?
yeah.
But you have to work really hard at them to make them do pipe band drum scores. Our drum score notation is based on real music, right? But it's a variation, right? So you have to make those big bits of software work your way. They're working against you. So I thought, well,
Right.
let's do something that's easy for, if you're the creator, you're the leading drummer, you're the author, the composer, make it really easy for you to lay out your drum score and then do it in such a way that it's beautiful enough for people to be able to read it and consume what you've written easily. And when you think about pipe bands these days, we've kind of moved away. I've noticed this over the decades that it used to be you all get round a table twice a week sort of thing, and
Yeah.
you learn two bar phrases, and now you've got
Repeat after me,
fly-ins.
like yeah,
Yeah, you got folks flying in from the other side of the world, right?
yeah.
100%. Aye. Yeah.
And you kind of the mantra now is you turn up to practice knowing
Yep,
the music, right?
yep.
Not you don't turn up to practice to because it's so
Play,
rare
yeah,
that you
yeah,
get
yeah.
everybody around the table. Yeah. So you need tools that allow you to do that aren't an overhead, right? And that was the whole thing. Make it easy to use, and put features in there that make it easy for folks to use, but also make it, powerful enough to be able to lay it out so it's not a pain to try and read. I love a handwritten drum score. It's like a work of art when
Not
it's done
ours.
properly,
Not
right?
our, not ours.
Just
Well,
talk about that.
there are some. There's one person in particular who does really beautiful handwritten drum
Yeah,
scores, and
yeah,
that's
yeah.
Stephen Butter, right? I hope he
Right.
doesn't mind me calling him out for that, right? And I think they're works of art, right? You can
Yeah,
frame them and put them on the wall if you get
yeah.
an original
Yeah,
from
yeah,
them, sort
yeah.
of thing.
So true.
Um, but there are others. You should see my handwritten scores, right?
Yeah.
That you're not quite sure what you'd use them for. This is a family show after all, right?
Yeah.
So it's trying to find something that made it easy to, for the composer to get their thoughts down on paper, change them, right? Folks are changing stuff every time they have a practice, right? And you can't get the Tipex out every single time, take photocopies, put them in the post, that sort of thing, right?
Hmm.
So, yeah, it's kind of make something a tool that's easy for a leading drummer to use to be able to communicate with his core or her core, and then uh, make it, sort of easy enough for folks to read it and consume it. What version is this? Is this a new one? What date's this one from? Have I got last week's copy or have I got this week's copy? When things are changing rapidly throughout the season.
I mean, Alan,
Some course.
I understand very little about coding, but what you're saying is like such a great idea, and it's right on the money. It's everything we need as drummers, lead drummers especially. But to convert it from code into like a program and now you're taking a language, basically, if you think of music notation as a language, you're taking another language, putting that into another language,
So
making it.
you ever see the movie Inception, right? It's
Yeah,
like
Yeah.
the
exactly.
guy's in the dream within the dream within the dream sort of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you're sounding like that. But no, you hit on a really important point there for me. I've done a lot of learning over the last 15 years of doing this because it's put me in touch with a lot of folks like yourself, right? And you learn ideas from people and you collaborate on ideas and that generates new things that people want, right?
Yeah.
But one of the things that I found over these 15 years, you're hitting a key word there, it's a language, right? It's a communication tool, right? And one of the biggest challenges I think we have at the moment is, yeah, there are fantastic educators out there now, right? But
100%.
stuff I never saw when I
100%.
was
Totally
Yes.
changed.
right?
Yep.
And we're all in it because we like hitting bits of wood off a drum, right, and making noises, right? But educating folks, bringing kids on, right,
Mm.
from how do you keep their attention? How do you get them to learn the discipline of this? How do you make them focus on learning how to read music, right, as part of it? Because it's such an essential, that ability to communicate is so essential these days, and as
Hmm.
part of the part of the part of the whole process and part of the whole thing about keeping pipe bands alive, right? With
Yeah.
the kids coming on, sort of thing. And I'm by no means an educator, right? But I really respect the folks that can do this. And the challenge is that we have a notation system for snare drum, right? Let's start with snare drum, which has been developed since the days of, I mean, what Alex Duffett did with, Dr.
Yep.
Fitzberger, wasn't it, all those
Yeah,
years
yeah.
ago, right? Has
Yeah.
laid the foundations for what we have today. It was a step change from what we had before, and it's still used in some forms of drumming. We've got the notes all on a single line, and you
Yeah.
figure out whether it's right or left hand, all that kind
Yeah.
of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's based on real music, the notation that we have there, the dots, the cuts, the duration of the notes, the embellishments, all that kind of stuff is real mainstream music. They might use different words for some of the things we do, right? And when we talk about snare drumming and all the rest of it. And there are educators out there working on, we used to have the blue, orange, and the red books, from the
Yeah, that's right. I've
RSPBA
that SPB.
and there are many other commercial books out there now, some of whose content has been written with drum score editor, right?
Yeah.
That are being used to help educate people on how to read music. But I think I think what we have is that we're reaching a point where, like all language, things change, right? It evolves, right?
Yeah.
There are
Yeah.
there are folks, creative folks pushing the boundaries and wanting to express themselves in different ways. And then we've got well, this is how we've always done it
Mm.
type approach. And it's how do you balance that, right? And on the Facebook page I have for Drum Score Editor, we have these discussions about music notation, which if you're into music notation are great things to take part in. If you're not,
Yeah. Yeah.
it'll seem like watching paint dry, right? But
I'm
or
gonna
even
check
more
that out.
frustrating. And so we talk about, you know, how do you express this rudiment, right? How do you notate this, right? How does everybody do it? And you get the different opinions in, right?
Yeah.
And opinions are great because you're starting to hear how it's being developed in different parts of the world, in different communities, and in different drum corps, right? There was one drum corps, they got in touch with me saying, hey, can your software put a horizontal line above a note because that's how we show a roll? And I'm like, nobody else in the world shows a roll that way, right? That particular marking is called a tenuto, I think, in, in
Right.
in mainstream music. And they say, yeah, but that's the way we've always done it.
Oh,
And it's kind of like, well, if you're teaching folks, do you not think that maybe you should teach them,
A
you know,
universal.
the universal way?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so you're coming up against those kind of like sort of
yeah.
cultural, historic ways of that various bands have in different communities. Um, and we're also hitting sort of kind of like limits of the understanding of the notation system we have. There's been a couple of debates we've had about, I don't know, for example, let's take a Swiss rough, right?
Right.
Where
Octave.
you've got
Yep.
three little grace notes that appear before
Yeah.
the main note,
Yeah.
right? Just we all know that one, right? Now, if that note, the root note of that rudiment you're playing is on the beat and is the first
Yeah.
beat in a bar, right?
Yeah.
Traditional music notation says, well, those three grace notes should be after the bar line
Before
and
the beat.
before that note.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Which pushes on the page the note further to the right, right?
That's right.
But you have to leave space in what you're playing to be able to play those three grace notes. So there's probably looks like a long duration or gap in the previous bar before that. So what I'm
Yes.
trying to get to is some drummers now are taking those three grace notes and they're floating them before the bar line,
Yeah.
right? So that the root note is appearing on the beat at the start of the next bar. And it
Right.
looks good, right? It keeps the page looking more balanced and neat and all the rest of it. But traditionally, they shouldn't be there. So who's right and who's wrong, right? And
Yeah.
and you get that pull. So what is the standard? And you sort of think, well, why is this an issue? You should be able to do what you want. Music's creative, people should be able to
Yeah.
express themselves.
I was going to say. I was going to say that you're right. It's expressive, and I don't think there's a right or wrong. There, of course, there's a right and wrong. But what I mean is as long as it communicates to the reader,
Can you play it or can you not?
then
Yeah,
then
we're
it
all
should.
talking with three different accents here, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Exactly.
On
Right.
the show, right? But we're communicating, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, but the challenge then comes back to the next generation, the folks, the educators and this is what came up in one of those discussions. It's kind of like, well, if you can do the same thing multiple different ways, which way do we teach the kids, right?
Yeah.
And do we complicate their lives further by saying that, well, they're learning the rudiments, they're learning core, they're learning to march, they're learning to do all the things together. And by the way, we can say this multiple different ways. So if you see it this way and this way, it's the same thing. It's kind of like overload, right?
Yeah.
So maybe there should be some kind of definitive standard that says this is how we do it in the pipe band world, right? And there are options and variances, but this is the standard, and this is what we shall teach people. All right, that's the only bit that concerns me about it. Otherwise, it's like I just said, we're three different accents all talking the same thing, right? I mean, we use
Yeah.
different words to mean the same thing as well.
Yeah.
It is just communication, and which is what I think you said,
Do
Jason,
you
right
think?
at the start of this.
Yeah.
Right?
Do you
yeah.
think the standardization comes from cream rising to the top? So you mentioned Stevie McWhorter, for instance, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm a wee guy, right, I'm looking at somebody like Stevie or one of the big kind of names that's producing great music.
Yeah.
And I suppose it's kind of show and tell. You're going to obviously lean towards what they're doing. So
Yeah.
I suppose in a weird sort of format, they would
Yeah.
be the kind of de facto standardizers, if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah,
So,
and that's the evolution I'm talking about, right? So if you've got perhaps somebody who has come from maybe the same sort of age as me, has been involved with some of the big names in drumming back in the 70s and 80s, who
Yeah.
did things, who wrote their music in a certain way, and you've got folks looking at your Steve McWhorter, your Kerr McQuillans, the folks who are at the cutting edge today, sort of thing. And by the way, just because I didn't mention your name in that list, this is a dangerous thing to start throwing people's names. That doesn't mean that I don't think
I know.
You're in there. You're
blah,
in
blah,
there.
blah. Disclaimer, right? But so there's evolution happening there. I look at how scores were written in the 70s and 80s. I look at how scores are being written today. I'm privileged in that I get a lot of folks' scores come across my desk because I help a lot of people with their, whether they're using my software or not, with kind of notation stuff. So I'm privileged enough to see lots of folks' scores, and I see these differences in styles, and it's kind of like, well, is it a style? Would you teach the children again? Right? That's the educator's dilemma, isn't it? What do I teach them when they come along on a Tuesday night? Right? So, and that's
See,
the bit where I think, oh,
I think the actual what I would say is obviously I'm 54. I'm 54, right? I'm 54, so obviously I'm out the loop. I would say I think the rising stars of tomorrow, if we Callum Freeburns, your Matthews, people like that, the the dilution of staff notation has obviously increased the power or the technicality of younger people faster, in my humble opinion, because obviously you don't need to go to the core central. So if you don't have a great lead drummer in your area that you can access, then that would
yeah,
mean that potentially all these potentially great wee drummers aren't getting that kind of access. Whereas nowadays, with obviously the internet and staff notation, you can follow staff notation, play with your favourite band type thing.
mm.
I mean, that's just phenomenal. I can't get. I know I sound like an old guy looking at
Uh,
one of the Wayne's tablets, but I'm like, I can't get out how fantastic this is.
It's the resources that's available to you now remotely, and we can't talk about this without mentioning Rhythm Monster, who are a
Yeah,
big, a
for sure.
$100%.
big education, a
Yeah.
remote education enabler in terms of what they do there. When I was a kid, getting hold of somebody's score was great because you
Yeah.
could, this is good. What are they doing here? This is brilliant, sort of thing. But now you can go online, you can hear it being expressed the right way, right? Not just how you think you should play that rudiment, but how they play that rudiment.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And you can even try and core along with them, play along with it. All those resources are there today. Yeah, so you're quite right there, Andrew.
You can learn so much faster as well. Like,
The technology has enabled
yeah,
that for folks, and the good thing is that means that they're starting from a place where we all finished off. So generationally, folks are getting a leg up, if you like, from so the players of today, that their starting point isn't trying to figure out how you play a flam five, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's because they can hear that and see that anywhere. It's now kind of like, all right, what more can I do with this? Right? We're creating the platform they're starting from is greater than perhaps, talk for myself anyway. It was for me back then. I had good access to a single tutor at the time,
geez,
right?
it's almost unfair, isn't it?
Yeah, if I knew then what I knew now, no,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, 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 exactly. But
I
but
wanted to ask you, Alan, when you were creating the software, right, and you're doing your coding, and did you come across any roadblocks that just sort of just took you by storm and broke your brain, and you had to like dig deeper and go, why is that? What is a nine stroke roll?
yeah, that the phrase I just used. It. If I knew then what I know now, I probably would
Yeah,
never have done this, right?
yeah.
It was like I thought, yeah, listen, I learned to code in 1980 something or other, right? And 84 I started, right? And it was all in business enterprise type stuff. And I thought, how hard can it be to take those skills and turn it into something that runs on people's laptops that help them make music? A lot harder than I thought it was. What I didn't know,
Oh
what I
yeah,
didn't know. I mean,
yeah,
right? And so to your point, you've just got to, the amount of rework that's been done and is still being done, because, I look at it and go, why did I ever do that? Because I didn't know, I just
yeah,
had to find a way to smash through that wall and get something working,
yeah.
right? And that's now causing me pain now. So you got to go back and rework it. But yeah, to your point, yeah, I think it's worth saying that drum score editor is not, it, it's not a money making venture, right? Because if I was to reflect in the price every hour of pain that's gone into actually making it and refining it over the years, it would be totally unaffordable, right?
Yeah.
So I look at it this way: it's a bit of a passion project. I put my time and effort into it. I've learned a lot from it. I've met and collaborated with some fantastic drummers around the world as a result, right? And still am today, right? And so I get a lot of satisfaction out of it, and I've had a lot of satisfaction out of pipe band drumming over the decades, and it's nice to be able to put something back in, right? So
It's
there's
massive.
there's a free there's a free version, right? There's a
Yeah.
free version of the software that's used by a lot of folks, as I find out. And there's and you can pay a small fee to unlock some productivity tools, which is pretty useful for uh, a very, if you're a prolific,
Yeah.
writer of scores, right? It just
Yeah.
helps you make you more efficient. And that money helps me cover the
Yeah.
physical,
Yeah.
the real costs I have, not my time, but
Yeah.
it costs hundreds of pounds a year to just even have a piece of software out there, right? With
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
certificates and posting and things like that.
Domains and
So
all
just to
that.
cover my real costs, yeah. I don't spend money on marketing or any of that kind of stuff. It's just, the physical things. I need to pay Apple so much every year to be able for it to run on an Apple platform. I need to,
Yeah.
similar for sort of overheads
And
for Microsoft.
so much of this pipe band world is just people like yourself, doing just
Yeah,
giving all your time.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it, you're paying subs to your pipe band, maybe you get your
Yeah.
travel costs and all the rest of it because you love the music. This is what you like doing, being part of this community. All these are overheads on you doing what you love doing, sort of thing,
Exactly.
right? And
Yeah.
paying for your tuition, all that kind of good stuff, right? And it's like, so you don't want to, you want it to be a sustainable piece of software, right? You want it to
Yeah.
be able to, just keep working and that for
Yeah.
folks.
Yeah.
But at
Yeah.
the same time, you don't want to be like, trying to I've always said its design was never to feed the family, right? It's more about just keeping involved, right,
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
the community,
Yeah.
and and it's worked pretty well. I don't sort of, I'm a bit of a privacy nut, having been in technology and cybersecurity type stuff
Yeah.
for a while. I don't go gathering information off people's laptops and things, or
yeah.
anything about that
Which
kind of
people
stuff, right?
appreciate. People appreciate
Yeah.
that. I'm telling you.
This day and age, it's
Yeah.
become. It's not like, Google's like sucking up everything they know about you every time you're using it,
Exactly.
sort of thing. So there's none of that in it,
I believe they sent all my information back. This is that guy's not even get anything interesting we want.
We can't sell this. We can't find a buyer.
Nobody wants to buy anything to do with this, man. They've blocked me.
Yeah.
Alan,
No cybersecurity issues here. Yeah.
in speaking about that, what you've done, and obviously the maintenance that goes on with um drum score editor, what is there more coming? Have you got plans?
Yeah. Yeah, sure, that's fine. So my passion project, which is Drum Score Editor, is going to live for as long as I can keep it living, right? And
Mm.
it's going to evolve, and there's bits and pieces coming. But I am working on the background and assist all the folks who follow on the page, and that this year there'll be fewer features, right? And having said that, there's been a few. As I focus my time on a new project, which is a bit more all-encompassing for pipe band music. We'll just leave it at that for the moment. It's
That's nice.
I like that.
there's there's been it's interesting because when I look at the amount of effort it took to get drum score editors where it is, there's lots of things would have been much more efficient if I'd known more back then, right?
Mm.
If I skilled in the tools that were needed. But AI is here now, right?
Right.
And AI
It's good
is
for
a
coding, right?
tremendous. It's a real enabler. It's what I'm. In fact, it's got a whole new cool phrase now. They call it vibecoding, right? Which I'm struggling a little bit with yet. If you're using AI to write your apps, they call it vibe coding these days, right?
Yeah, right.
So I'm really exploring that quite deeply at the moment to see how that can. Now that I know what I want and what good looks like, having learnt that the hard way with what I've done, I can help drive the AI to help me build what I want for this next generation sort of solution sort of thing. And so there's two parts to this. Yes, it will produce something at the end of it, which is more, as I say, more all-encompassing for pipe bands. But at the same time, it's also for me a great sense of satisfaction in being able to drive this stuff using these modern tooling, learning more about how best to drive this AI and do this vibe coding thing to produce to produce that. And the progress that I've made this year is, so far is probably equivalent to 5 or 6 years of effort that I put in
Wow.
initially with Drumstick Editor. So it's kind of like it really is a huge productivity tool. It, I it's evolving all the time. So anything I say now is time limited. But at the moment, from what I found, you really need to know what you're looking for and how to drive it the right way to get the outcome from AI at the moment. Um, but that will change tomorrow. That
Yeah,
will
yeah.
become.
It'll
So
it'll
the
be able to
next
predict
change.
it before you even think it.
I was going to say, do you think, right? this is my mad mind, right? But obviously, with the rise in AI and the speed in which it kind of it's moving faster forward as every day goes past, because obviously it's kind of fixing itself and it's getting better. I mean, do you think there's going to be a time when a drummer's going to go like that? Write me an MSR that Stevie McButler would write.
Oh,
Perfect. You have just absolutely. I've had this discussion so many times with folks that I believe we will get to a state where you will feed it a pipe tune, pipe score, maybe, right? And
Yeah.
you will say, uh, produce me snare, tenor, and bass for this tune.
Yeah.
Do it for a grade three standard, right?
mm,
Yeah.
What you'd expect in terms of ability for a grade three core, and give it the feel of, you know,
The flavour. Yeah.
slot,
Yeah.
or whatever your favorite pipe band is, right? And so make it sound like St. Lawrence O'Toole, or make it sound like Inverary, or you know,
yeah,
yeah. I think you have to train models to be able to do that, right?
yeah,
With AI,
Yeah.
and the and that's the challenge. Is how do you build a model that's going to do that, and then how do you feed it all of that knowledge so that it can produce this for you in the first place? And that's it would be great to get to be playing with tools that can do that sort of thing. I'm not there yet. Maybe there's others out there that are, right? But
Yeah.
it's
that's
definitely top
scary.
of mind. I need this
It,
thing I'm building
it,
at the moment to give me the basis for that.
Yeah, yeah,
it's kind of interesting because obviously we've seen things like the songwriting with
yeah.
Yeah,
AI,
yep,
and I suppose it's only a matter of time
it
that we're
is.
all
Yeah,
at the chop.
You can't just
But
kind of gatekeep it. Hey, it's coming.
but what I'm trying to work out is actually right something slightly more. So replicants. I think that's in a film, isn't it?
Blade Runner.
But replication of the thing that we're describing. So you put in that amount of information. So you give AI the opportunity to actually formulate this kind of answer, which is an answer
yeah,
to a question.
perfect. Yeah.
But I wonder if it'll be just as good or better, and if and us as people, as drummers, as creators, will be as kind of responsive to it,
So this
or
is one of the
if
big
we would have, you know what I mean, or we'll have or we
exactly.
would can it maybe it would recoil us a wee bit. I don't know. It's just
I think it'll
it's
be. It's all opinions, right? Because we don't know, right? But we can look at other things that are happening with AI and other in industries, right?
yeah
So it's well, let's just take technology, the industry I was in until I retired last year. And is that the exactly what I just said about the vibe coding thing there. It's kind of like if you know what you want, you can direct it to produce something that is useful to you. Which means that it's perhaps taking away um, a lot of the journeyman tradesman type early on as you learn and learn your trade sort of thing. It's kind of how do new folks get into this to learn this stuff that the AI has been fed off because nobody's doing that bit anymore. There's
yeah
you kind of wonder where it's going to get to, and so that what I've read in the other industries is kind of like sorts of lawyers, people, writing contracts, these sorts of things that it's the same sort of dilemma. How much do I trust this contract that's been written by AI versus me going through it with my time-honored way of making sure, there's no holes in this contract sort of thing, right? Is it a tool that can help an experienced lawyer, or is it a tool that replaces junior lawyers, right? And so when we then look at music, it's kind of like, yeah, they're, write me a song type thing is there. The Do we honestly believe for artists, whether it's because it's digital art as well being produced by these things as well, right? The AI, it's kind of because music, art, it's all related. It's all about creativity. It's coming from building on the knowledge you have, you learn from others, your own sort of innate creativity sort of
Mm,
thing.
mm.
If you've got a machine that's doing it, how can the machine do that, right? How can the machine get to a point where you you accept what it's doing and go, that's pretty good. Yeah, I'll go with that, right? Yeah, I like that drum score. I'm just going to take what it's written for me, or I like
yeah
that pipe tune. It's just written the 2025 version of Highland Wedding, which is or something that'll be as famous as Highland Wedding,
yeah
it's how do we how do we get to that point of acceptance, right? And And does it dilute then the ability for us to create stuff in the future? I think these are all the great discussions to have, and are way above my pay grade.
We'll
Right?
never know until it happens. I think it'll end up like you're literally standing there at a pipe band competition, guy next to you, and you're like, "Oh, that's an AI score, 100%." You know?
Yeah,
Or do you think it'll be like the cycling and doping, and they'll be like, I think they used AI. They're getting binned for that.
yeah. How do we do that? There's a famous test called the Turing test, where it can this piece of software, can this AI pass the Turing test? And the Turing test is about detecting whether the response is human or not, right? And it's all based on Alan Turing, the original Bletchley Park, all that kind of good stuff, right? And so there's a very famous test out there. Maybe there needs to be one of those for pipe band country. What's the Turing test for a pipe tune, right?
It might have to be.
If you're on the socials at the moment, right? You look through, they're getting better and better. The AI generated art, and folks, it's being posted out there, sort of saying this is something. Folks going, wait, you do realize you've been sucked in here? This is AI generated. This is not a real thing, right? A real story or a real picture and all the rest of it. To the point, there's now memes about it where they're deliberately putting hands on feet and things like that. See if you spot it in the actual pictures or anything, right? So it'd be interesting to see how all this evolves, because the pipe band community, we're not known for kind of like playing it straight. So somebody's always having a laugh somewhere, right? So I don't know. Maybe there'll be a pipe tune about AI writing pipe tunes. I don't know. It's like we'll just see how it goes. There's an idea for someone. There you go.
Ask AI to make you a new rudiment.
Talking about socials and stuff like that. Right. So Flam 5 is a product, right?
Yes. Well, Flam 5 is a business, right?
Yeah, and it's pretty good with its kind of interaction when it comes to like social media and stuff like that, and it really does pop as a product. Who's generating this? Who's the mastermind? Who's the guy that's overseeing this kind of?
That's really, really great question. And you know how I said I was a bit of a privacy nut, right? So in full disclosure, the guy who runs Flam 5 lives across the road from me, right?
Oh, okay.
And in no full disclosure, I said, hey, Andrew, like Jason, they've invited me on this podcast. Can I have a free T-shirt? I have a free T-shirt because of you guys from Alan, the guy who runs Flam 5, on the basis that I was going to be on your show, right? So
nice. Brilliant, superb. I love it.
You think I should have a drum store editor?
I'm actually loving it, right? So, but I do love their marketing. I think they're all over that.
It's absolutely brilliant. So, firstly, the drum case, right? It is a solid product. I love it, right? For a soft drum case, I remember throwing out my old Premier one.
Wait a minute, did you get a free one of that? Did you get a free one?
No. You've got to develop a relationship, right? But no, I'm really supportive of everything he's doing. He's a lovely guy, and he's really creative, and he cares about the quality of what he's doing as well, right? Whether it's the drum pad, whether it's the cases he's doing for the drums and all the rest of it, but he's really good at he's really good at getting the message out there, right? And as you say, Flam 5's a brand; it's now recognized, right? And folks, want to turn up in their Flam 5 gear, right? And what have you. So chapeau. He's really good at that stuff. Yeah, he's a really good guy. Yeah.
I have a feeling we might have to.
You should be buying the drum score T-shirt, Jason. That's what you should be buying.
We might have to get you a drum score T-shirt for yourself, Alan.
There we go. Let's continue this blagging.
We'll send you a T-shirt.
There we go. Can
send you one?
Editor.
Yeah. Like a special.
You've got your permission to write editor underneath it. Aye.
We'll give you the revamped model anyhow.
A big marker, big Sharpie in white editor.
I'll do a big Sharpie. That's all we need. Yeah. But no, brilliant. There's so much out there. To me, what I like about Flam 5, it's like that conversation we had just a few minutes ago, that most of the pipe band community is folks doing stuff to help keep the community going in different ways, and so small businesses like Flam 5 and there's many others out there, the drum pad from Russell, these sorts of things, right?
Yeah.
These are all people who
So
Yeah,
love that
people
drum
who
band.
care, right? Yeah, these are people who care about drumming and our community and our uh, trying to evolve it and keep it sustainable, right?
Yeah.
So anybody who's it's like you might think why would I have started this by saying hats off to Drumscreef, right? When clearly that's a competitor to what I'm doing, sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's not. It's just about everybody who's contributed over the decades into what we do, sort of thing. And I think anyone who's doing that gets my respect, right, straight away. Right? It's trying to keep it going.
I've got a question for you before we go, right?
Hmm.
What are you doing at the Worlds? Are you going to turn up?
I'll be at the World. Yeah.
Right, so
Ooh.
you'll be able to come. You'll be able to come to our veterans village. Hopefully, we'll get a wee marquee set up for you, right?
I will come along. To the
And if you're a
Veterans Village.
techie guy, you're going to assist us because I don't even. I've got this idea that I want to do kind of a live stream, me and Jason
Okay.
at the village. So
Yeah, we can do
you could
something
maybe
like
come
that.
on and do a bit of live
So
work
I
for
mean,
us.
you'll be competing at the Worlds, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll have some commitments with the band at the Worlds as well. I'm guessing with
Ooh.
somebody there. So if we work it around that, it'll be good. Yeah.
We'll
We'll
do
be sure to
something.
catch you. We'll be sure to catch you. 100%.
Yeah.
We
No, I'm
need to
looking
get.
forward to meeting you in person. That'd be great.
It'll be
Yeah.
good. Good crack. Good crack. Okay,
It's been
Alan. Thanks.
it's been fascinating having you on, Alan. This has been a different kind of conversation than we've had with other guys, and
I know
a
it's a bit
different kind of
bit
product.
highbrow for us. It's a bit
Yeah.
highbrow.
Yeah, let's get back to just telling jokes and
If I could take anything away from this, it's vibe coding, right?
Yeah.
Vibe coding.
I love the phrase that much. If somebody comes up with a good patter, I'm just going to go, that's vibe coding.
Do we need to find a drumming equivalent of it?
Yeah,
Somebody's,
100%.
Oh, you're
making
vibe
it up as they go. They're
coding there,
vibe
mate.
drumming.
Vibe coding there. Love it. Right, Alan,
Brilliant.
thanks very much for your time.
Take care, folks.
Cheers, Alan.
Thanks. Nice
Cheers,
chatting.
bye.
Bye.
Some man, eh? Great guy.
That was
Anything-
fantastic.
so
Hopefully, folk can actually start to switch on to the fact that only being a drummer that can drum is worthwhile if you can actually pass on what you're doing.
100%.
It puts a bit of pressure on you, trust me. I've been there, but I've been there in very many formats. But the point is that you need to kind of exchange ideas, and by exchanging ideas, it needs to be done on paper or by using his software, I suppose.
This is what's happening, and it's free software, and you can use it and just start learning how to use it. You know,
I'm
It'll
actually
get
going to
easier.
have to. I would like somebody over my shoulder when I try to use it, though.
I know. I'm afraid to start. I'm talking like
I'm
I use
not-
it.
you know-
I'm scared.
You know, one of these people. Oh, you can just have a play about with it. I don't want to have a play about with it. I want somebody to actually show me what to
Just
do.
tell me what to do.
I want you to spend your time to explain to me what I need to do. In fact, better still, I'll just sit here and you write the 6/8,
And I'll encourage you. Like,
and I'll do the nods. Oh, aye, right. I see. Aye. Oh, I see what you've done there.
do that bit again.
Listen, that's us for another show. I've got to do removals or something like that today through in Edinburgh.
Yeah.
I'm a
All right.
removal guy in Snare Force One, so.
So big shout out to Alan White.
And the next thing is the drummers are going to have a practice on the 14th. Then it don't turn up, stand by. 'Cause I'm getting Fredders with that. And unless you're in Australia, an impending doom scenario in the household, apart from that, that's your excuses. Anything else will only wash.
Right. Wunderbar. Let's get out of here, pal.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Thanks
Subscribe.
for watching.